YouTube, this is Kristen Moonrise. Welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to talk about my experience with Clairaudience during a job interview process. So we're just going to get right into it. So if you see me looking down, I'm looking at my notes here on my laptop, and I'm recording here on my phone. So Clairaudience is a form of psychic intuition. And we all have this psychic intuition because we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So when I embarked on my spiritual journey a few years ago, my clairaudience senses just kicked into high gear and they have not let up. So it's been a very interesting experience for these past number of years, but very enlightening. So I'm going to reference this book. I'll link it in the description box. And it's more than four clair senses, but we're just going to go with the four that they have here. Clairaudience, which is what I believe my dominant one is when it sounds like someone is speaking directly in your mind. Clairvoyance is when you see images in your mind's eye that hold psychic significance. Clairsentience, or clear feeling, is probably the most common of the four, is when you feel something is going to happen. Claircognizance, or clear knowing, is when your intuition helps you figure something out that your rational brain can't, something you're maybe stuck on. I just know. So let me know in the comments if you've experienced any of those four, or maybe even a fifth one. And also, if you want to work out your senses a bit more, if you feel like you're lacking in one, you can definitely work on and improve it. Although another one may be your dominant one. So, to this story time. This was a job interview that I had. I applied to this job last year in 2022. It was basically a data job, a data analyst role, where I was updating their systems, doing reports, data visualizations, some statistics, all of that stuff. So it's really updating their systems, and it's a similar capacity to the job that I have now. Similar systems, but this was a much larger institution, and it's a research institution in the Texas Med Center. So it also had the possibility of doubling my salary. So it was also a remote job. So I was like, wow, fully remote, doubling my salary. That sounds like a dream. But I noticed on there that it had, the job originally posted was in April of 2022, and I was looking at it in July of 2022, so 3 months later. So I was thinking, well, it's still up. Maybe because this is a larger institution, maybe they just haven't gotten down to all of their applications yet. So I'm just going to go ahead and apply. So I applied, didn't hear anything for a few months, and I had completely forgotten about it. So I got a call back in September of 2022, 2 months after I had applied, and I got a call from the hiring manager, a guy. You're going to call him guy, actually, a man. And so he was asking to see if I was still interested in interviewing. So I was asking him a little bit more about the job. Thankfully, I was on my laptop as he called, and so I had to quickly look up the application, my notes that I had sent, just to remind myself of what job this was, because 2 months later I had completely forgotten about it. So as we were talking, he was explaining to me a little bit more about the job, and I could tell that he was kind of almost holding back a lot of emotion, and it's like he just really needed a win. Like he sounded very defeated, and he really wanted a win. So I actually kind of had to calm him down a little bit, because he got a little emotional on the phone. Like maybe whatever, he was battling maybe the decision makers. That's what I was feeling already. And so I was like, oh, it's okay, blah, blah. And I'm like, here I am already soothing this guy, and we're just on the phone for a job interview. I'm like, okay, let's stop. So I was thinking, well, that's actually red flag number one. Don't go anywhere that seems kind of desperate. But I was thinking, this is a well-known, globally known institution. this would look great on my resume. So let's just see. So we scheduled the interview about a week later, and it was with him and a lady in their finance unit. So just to just for clarification, each time that we would have an interview scheduled, he would send me the names of the people that I would interview with. He would add them on the email, and then all of the relevant documentation, like the job description, my resume, so blah blah blah. So each time I got an email for each interview, I looked at the names, looked them up on LinkedIn, and I was the only non-white person, only black person. And besides the hiring manager guy, I was the most educated. I mean, he and I both have 2 master's degrees apiece, both having having an MBA and then another master's degree, and everyone else had maybe a bachelor's degree. So that's important. So I'm the only black person, non-white person, with as much education as I have, and all the others were white women. He was the only man. So this interview was over Zoom, as it was a remote job. So it was a great interview. I really hit it off really well with both him and the lady in finance. They were really nice, and I could tell like I was like helping him relax a little bit. And so they asked me questions, and then I really heard myself speak, and I was like, wow, I surely do know a lot about data science. And so they asked me their questions, and then they even was asked, so as I would answer them, that would then prompt them to ask more questions about what my answer was about this programming language versus that programming language, because they don't know anything about data science at all. They just know that they need help with their data. They're behind, things are getting tight, and they're having to, federally ask, respond to a lot of federal requests that they may be struggling a little bit with because of their lack of data management and governance. So they're looking for the person that can wave the magic wand, basically. And so I would tell them the difference between the programming languages and, data science programming languages versus software engineering programming languages. And so they were learning from what I was saying, and I was like, wow, I know a lot more than I realized, because I hadn't interviewed in a while. So I will also ask him, or ask both of them, how do you measure success? What do you expect out of the new hire within 6 months, 9 months, 12 months after hiring, after start date? And so he's like, that's a great question, but I wouldn't expect anything, anything that you can produce until maybe like a year into the job, because there's just so much to do. There's so much to dig through. So I wouldn't expect anything as soon as 6 months or 9 months, maybe after a year, once you fully understood the system. So that made me feel really good, because if this was a big job to clean up, I wanted to make sure that I had some support. So I did feel supported, that I didn't have to know everything immediately. So we ended that interview that happened maybe about, lunchtime. That was kind of the time that interview was held. So by 5 o'clock, I had received another email from Guy, saying, we think you're a strong candidate and would like to move you forward to meet with the larger leadership panel. So I said, okay, that sounds great. I'm happy to meet with them. And so we scheduled that second interview, looked at the names on the email of the larger panel, and it was 3 other women plus Guy, the hiring manager. So I again looked them up on LinkedIn, did my research. So I looked at lady 1, okay. Looked at lady 2, okay. And I looked at lady 3. And so I looked at her picture, and I was writing down, what her job title was at the organization, at the institution. And I heard a voice loud and clear in my head say, she is going to have a problem with you. And I just instantly like sunk because I'm thinking, man, I did so well in that last interview. I'm excited about this job. Um, you know, and I know at this point, like, don't argue with that voice. That voice is not asking you to challenge it at all. It's straight up telling you the truth. That's clairaudience in its true form, right then and there, loud and clear. So I said, okay, this job is not for me because I'm not about to just go ahead and walk in to something that's already hostile or whatever. So I just continued to prepare for the interview. And so when the time came to have it, um, it was going well. So I had, since it was a Zoom call, on Zoom, my photo is a picture of me playing, not playing bassoon, but on stage with my bassoon. So that definitely got the attention of one of the ladies, and she was like, "Oh wow, my son's in band," and so she started talking about music, and so we started talking about music and stuff like that. So we really kind of connected there. You kind of have to be a little chummy with some people. So she's like, "I can see you've got the left brain and the right brain going." So, in one interview, I'm talking about programming languages, and in the next interview, I'm talking about music. So, I'm making everybody happy. So we get to, we start talking, asking questions, asking and answering questions from lady one, from lady two, and then we get to Karen. So we're going to call her Karen. And so, guys, like, okay, Karen, it's now your turn to ask your question. And so she she says to Guy, "I'm sorry, Guy, but I'm going to go off script." And so she picks up my resume, picks up my paper, my resume, the piece of paper with my resume on it, and she slams it down on the little table that she's sitting at. And she says, "I can look at your resume all day long, but how do I know if you can actually do the job? Can you actually get it?" And I was like, whoa. And I said, "Well, yeah, I wouldn't apply to a job that I didn't feel like I could do." And so she gets even louder. She's like, "Well, how do I know if you can actually do the job? Because we're going to need somebody in here on day one and blah, 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 blah." So she just goes off. And so I say, "Well, yeah, I've not, used any of your systems before. I don't know what your systems look like, but I just need to take my time and learn the systems so I can just see what's what. There's so much that, I just don't know. I can't really tell you because I don't know what anything looks like." So one of the ladies was like nodding her head, like, "That's a good enough answer for me." But Karen took it, that still wasn't a good enough answer for her. So she just kept yelling at me and kept asking me, "How do I know if you can actually get it? Can you get it? Can you get it?" And I'm like, okay, that's simply what my intuition was already telling me. It told me she was going to have a problem with me, and it acted out exactly that way. I know not to ignore that voice when it says that so loud and clearly. So, probably the lead lady on there kind of noticed the tension, so she kind of swept in and kind of swept the conversation in another direction. But at that point I was like, yeah, I'm just going to finish up this interview and leave it alone. So and at the end, like, they asked me a question about, a particular, they wanted me to do a particular thing in their ERP system, and it was really outside of the job description. It wasn't even on the job listing. It was more of a functional analyst role, and this was more of a data analyst role. But I've been a functional analyst before. So I knew what they wanted me to do, and I said, "Yeah, sure, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've done that before. Yes, I can do that." So I can tell I was like really easing them by showing that I literally can do all of this. But after hours, that interview was also around lunchtime. Um, I had just sent the hiring manager an email. I was like, I'm sorry, but I didn't even apologize. I said, I am withdrawing my application. I thanked him for his time. I said he was very professional, but I said, Karen was extremely unprofessional by asking me, can I do the job? Can I actually get it? As if I am answering the question so horribly and unprofessionally that it's questionable that if I can do the job. And that job said preferred master's degree, but it required a bachelor's, so it didn't even require a master's degree. I was already overqualified for that job anyway. So and then in the documentation that they included in the email scheduling the Zoom calls, it lists what the company values were and what the cognitive demands of the job was and all these things. I'm like, I can meet all of these things. But I wrote back in the email to him, these are all of the core values that she completely obliterated in the interview. So I said, if that's any indication of how you guys operate, I do not want to be part of this team, flat out. So the next day, around 1 p.m., I had the interview on a Thursday. Around 1 p.m. Friday, their HR department calls me. And so the lady was very nice and wanted me to, wanted my side of the story. And so I told her, she just completely was rude. She had a designated question to ask me, but she did not ask me that. She asked me, can I actually do the job? And me, honestly, being a black bassoon player, being in these spaces where not very many black people are, also showing up way more educated than a lot of them, I know that I've seen it before. There's been many Karens throughout my life and the various things that I've been involved with I can pick that up so easily and quickly, and that's why it was so easy for me to dismiss, because I've seen it before and I just don't have any patience for that anymore at this stage of my life. So I don't think that they were expecting me to just say no like that. So the HR lady was like, I've never seen a guy like this. He's beside himself. He's so upset. And I'm like, okay, So she said that he thought he had found the one in me and wanted to give me an offer. And perhaps I can work with Karen's colleagues instead of with her directly. And I'm like, that's just way too much back and forth. I don't even know what the actual question that she should have asked me was. She robbed the rest of the team of my answer to the question that they have picked out that she should have asked. And the HR lady was like, well, we are committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm like, well, does she know that? I don't know. So I didn't want to say that it was necessarily racist. But since the HR lady said, well, we are committed to DEI, she knows what's up. She knows what it is. So she was hoping that I would reconsider. They wanted me to reconsider. And I was like, look, lady, I don't have to beg for a job. And so she's like, okay. And so that by that next business day, that Monday, they had reposted the job. They had evidently taken it down while I was still interviewing, which I thought was a little crazy. I'm like, don't get ahead of yourself. So they reposted it. And till this day, the day of this recording, this is late March, and probably the day that I'm going to post it, it's still open. The job is still open. So it's been open since April 2022. This is March 2023. That job is still open. So thankfully at my current job, I have picked up more side projects, more data projects to do. So that also pays stipends, so it's additional income, which I think that's pretty cool. But one thing about them that I felt that I need to say just about that whole interview process was that not only was their systems outdated, but the way that they were thinking and the way that they were expecting me to be and expect what they were expecting me to put up with, that was extremely outdated. And it's almost like, you see people, and me being a super spiritual person, I can kind of see these things, but it's really just very telling who's still living in the past, who, you think that you can continue talking to somebody a certain way and you can get, that it won't affect your team or that it won't make you look bad. And I just think that that's just really unfortunate because this is how teams really ruin themselves because of the who they don't fire, essentially, who they do hold on to. And they can keep her, that's their problem. But I was like, I can't deal with this at all. So the moral of the story, listen to your clair senses. They are very, very clear. They tell you exactly what's going on. They're not going to lie to you. Don't try to challenge it. The things will always play out the way that it should. It'll never lie to you. So when you tap more into your spiritual senses, these things would become so easy. And I've had multiple clairaudient situations happen since then, and they've all been true. So yeah, so let me know what you think in the comments. Have you ever had a bad job interview before? Has anyone ever spoken to you like that before? I'm so glad that so many people are stepping out of how these jobs are treating people now. Or if you let me know, definitely let me know if you've experienced any of these clair senses and if they've saved you from anything crazy, like how that definitely saved me. So anyway, I will chat with you in the next video. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye.